Welcome to this video about gain structures. So gain structures is a pretty important topic when it comes to proper gaining your signals in the channels, but also in the left-right processing, but also on the speakers. So let's quickly first talk about where is there actually gains in our signal chain. So our signal chain starts with the microphone and the instrument. And it travels through the whole chain until it reaches the speaker. And there is literally a lot of places where there is gains, where you can change the volume of the signal. So the first one is actually at the microphone or at the instrument itself. Most of the instruments and some microphones do have gains. So that's the first point where you have a gain. Then the next one could be the DI box. So most DI boxes do have a pad. You can either raise or lower the signal by 20 dB. So there is often a gain too. Then there is often a gain at, or not often, but always a gain at the channel. So the channel gain. Then the signal travels through the channels. That's now a detail, but there is also a compressor gain. That's the makeup gain. If it would be very detailed, we could also consider the equalizer to be a gain, but I will leave that out for now. So there is the channel fader. Which is basically the next point where you can change the level of the signal. Then we could go into groups, we could go into some buses. I'll leave that out at this point, but next point in the chain where you will definitely have a gain is the left-right processing. So you have all these things again. Most importantly, you have the master fader. So I made that a little bit too close now, because now we go out of the master fader directly to the speaker. So at the speaker, of course, we have another gain. There is at every speaker or the preamp of the speaker, there is a gain to set the level of the speaker itself. So you see there is several gains across the signal chain. I put them all in a list. We have the instrument gain as explained, we have the channel input gain, the compressor. We could see the EQ as a gain too. We have the fader gain. If we use groups, we have a group fader. Then we have the master fader. Some consoles have an output gain of the console itself, and then the gain output stage, so the amplifier, or if it is an active speaker, the gain at the speaker itself. So a lot of gains, and the big challenge now is how can we set these gains correctly. So our final goal is to use the signal we get and always have it in a range we can work with well. What does that mean? So the signal should not be too high and it should not be too low. I'm always talking about the amplitude here. Huh? So if it is too high, it will overdrive, it will crush, and it will basically be destroyed, so it does not sound good anymore. If it is too low or too weak, it will be too low on the speakers, so we cannot get it as loud as we need it. And it will also be too low for certain tools like compressors to properly work, so that they cannot properly work with the weak signal. So we have to get it into a range where we can work with. So what is the right range to get it into? That's not an easy question, because there's different mixers and they have different they use different scales, let's say. So most of the mixers they basically use a scale where there is like 0, and then it goes down -6, -12, -24, and so on, -60, 100, something like that. And then it goes +3, +6, and +10. So this is all plus and this is negative. That's some like that's basically an indication bar of the current level of the signal. So if you don't have any signal at all, it's minus, like minus 100 or even below, and if the signal goes up, it goes up in this bar basically. So a good, like normally you also have color indications, so mostly the range up to around minus, actually up to 0 I guess, is mostly indicated with a green color, and then it normally changes to orange, and then it normally changes to red. So what you should make sure is that you always keep your signal in somewhere around that area here. So not our goal is the signal not to peak, so it's not, the goal is that it not overdrive. So when it is in the red area, it starts to overdrive. So that we always want to make sure it doesn't happen. So when you set the channel gain or whatever gain it is, make sure it is somewhere in that green area around -6 to 0. There is also other mixers, they use a different bar. So in that consoles, 0 is at the top, and it basically then goes down like -3, -6, -12, -18, and so on. So here you want to basically not go up to 0 with your signal, so you will, let me use the same green as I use for the other bar. So here basically the green area just goes up to approximately -12, something around that, and then at -12 it will be the orange area we're in. So you should probably make sure you don't go too much over -12. If you get close to 0, your signal will start to overdrive. So with this case, try to go around -12 to -24 probably. With the scale on the left here, try to go around -6 to 0. That would be probably my guideline, but the goal in the end is really that you get it as high as possible, but not into the orange or red area where it starts to overdrive. So now the big question is, how can we achieve that? Because there is so many points in the signal chain where we can change these gains, this signal level. So how can we set up a so-called gain structure so that the signal is in a good range at every point in the signal chain? So what I did is I did write down a 5 points list, and you can basically follow this list such that you end up with a good gain structure. Now go through this list. It's pretty simple, but it is done so many times it's done wrong by sound engineers that you end up in a mess with the gains, and you cannot really mix well. So try to always follow this list, especially when you come to a new venue, when you have new speakers or whatever, that you always first do this before you start to do sound checks or anything else. So the first point in the list is about playing a song from the computer. Try to use a song you know well, probably a type of music which also the band plays, so that you can really have the feeling of how the show will be later, how the concert will be later. So first step, play a song from your iPod and connect it to the mixer, of course. Then number 2, set the gain of the channel, so the channel gain, to nominal level. So nominal level is what I just explained before, like so it goes up close to the orange area of this of the bar, of the gain or the level bar. Set it to nominal level. Then number 3, set the master fader to bass position. So this is the master fader of the left-right processing. Be aware at this point the speakers are switched off, so the speakers are not on, and the speaker gain is set to 0. That's really important here. So we unmute, because we unmute everything now. We set the master fader to bass position. Bass position is the unity position. Often there is a little U indicated. That's basically when the fader is up at 0. We do the same thing also for the channel fader and number 4. So basically now the only thing left is to turn up the speaker so the sound comes out of the speaker. And what you do is you switch on the speaker and you slowly start turning up the volume of the speaker. You basically turn the volume up as long as you think it should be louder in the venue for that specific event. So you set the volume to that point where we, like to that level you will also use during the event. So in this way you can basically set all the gains correct. So what we did now is we played the song, we did the gain of the channel, so the gain of the channel is correct. The master faders and channel faders are in unit position, which means that they're like, that's the bass position, that's the position where we want to work with when we do live mixing. So they're also good, and then it's literally about turning the speaker gain to a point where we can, at which we can work with for this specific event. And that's basically all of it. It's turning up the faders, setting the input gain, and turning up the speakers last to the level we need it. So that's it. Thanks for watching the video.